What is up, everyone? Avio Easter here with Yapa238.com, and welcome to the Yapastolic Podcast. It's the podcast where we talk about being young, being apostolic, taking that power and putting it into action. Now, today's Yapastolic Podcast is not going to be as normal, all right? I want to present something to you guys that I thought would be super relevant, not just for the conversation at hand that we were having, but for young apostolics in general. And so I want to give you guys a clip from the Inferno group coaching call. Every month we come together and we hop on there to figure out strategies, best practices, mindsets, and different things that we have to have in order to be sure that we accomplish the goals that God has given us to accomplish, those who want to make an impact on like a global level. And so that is the Inferno group, and that is what the purpose of the GCCs are. That's kind of what we call a lot of things. We actually create a lot of acronyms for Yapa and Yapa type stuff. So GCC, FSC, YAP, A238, kind of funny. But I wanted so long story short, we started this GCC. Not everyone could make it. Actually, majority of our members weren't available, but we did have someone come through, and it's an active member of the Yapa fam, and not only the Yapa fam, but the Inferno group, the Firestarter community. Not only the Firestarter community, but helps in the back end of Yapa 238 as well. So it was a really great pleasure to have her on. And as we were going through the GCC, Carmen began to share with us, we were beginning to talk about some things that are super relevant. And then I was like, you know what? We can't let this conversation go. We got to hit record and present this to Yapa 238 and the Yapa fam. So that is what this video is. So if you're watching this on YouTube, you'll be able to see the video. If you're watching this or listening to this on Spotify, SoundCloud, Apple Podcasts, wherever you're listening to this, we have something, you're going to be hearing that about 45 minutes to an hour of our conversation. So without further ado, let's go ahead and jump into it. It's going to be really, really awesome, and I'll catch you guys at the end. Hey, what is up, Yapa fam, fire starters? Welcome to a GCC in the Inferno group. And one of the things that Carmen and I were talking about today was a few things. The main thing, one of the vein that we're picking up on right now is adventure and having a life adventure. All right, so Carmen, if you want to share just real quick a little bit about where some of the wins that you've had this week, particularly the apartment win.
So I am moving out of my house, officially for the very first time, not just college, to go an hour away to where I'm going to have a job. And so I was looking at apartments, and I went on actually Good Friday. Didn't plan that, but that's when it happened. I went to look at 2 apartments, and the first apartment I looked at, I was going into it thinking, I'm not going to want this place because it's at least $200 more than I want to pay for rent. And I don't need it fancy schmancy. I'm just here to get some practice with apartment hunting or whatever. I had already decided that the second place I knew about, I was going to go to, because I'd seen pictures of the inside of it, and I was like, that's what I need. And the reason that I had already decided that it was perfect for me was because it was very, very simple and very plain. It looked clean. It had bedrooms, a bathroom, there was nothing, fancy about it, anything like that. And I felt like that fit me because I see myself as very plain and very simple. And so I'm not going to need more if I'm plain and simple. I very low maintenance. So, and plus it was for $5.95 a month. I can do that. I know. So,
okay, real quick, just to put that into perspective, over here in California, it's at least $2,500 to $2,900 a month. Yeah, for if I was a college student going to Sac State, I would have a room with I would be bunked with at least 3 other dudes, because this just doesn't work out here. But anyway, that's Illinois for you. So go ahead.
So it's $5.95. So it was like, so in my head, I'm like, this is perfect. This is exactly what I always imagined that I would end up, having. And it's $5.95 a month. Like, perfect. The only downside to this place was that like I would have to share a washer and dryer with like the rest of the building, which I mean, I was content with that because I was like, I mean, you know what? I'll just eventually figure out a time to wash my clothes and no one else's, and like I can deal, which has been a theme in my life, is like I can deal. I can be fine. So yeah, so I was like, I was set. I like already knew I was going to pick that place. So then I walk in to this old building that they kept a lot of historical features so they can get grant money because it was like an old like coffee mill or something. So a really, really cool old building in this really, really cute town in Iowa. And it's like downtown, so it's like a cool area too. Like as I'm walking around, I don't have a dog, but like it made me want to get a dog so I could take my dog on walks around because it was such a cute neighborhood. And I live in the country, so I'm not used to having like a cute little downtown neighborhood to walk my dog in. But I came in and I saw this place and it was gorgeous. Like it had brand new appliances because it's just been renovated. It had this beautiful exposed brick that was part of keeping it, traditional. It had this like interesting barn door thing, and it was just super cool. And it was $809 a month, which I realize is still dirt cheap compared to California.
Yeah.
But it's more than I was. It's more, and I'm going to be a teacher, so it's like it's not like I'm rolling in dough. But the thing is I thought it was gorgeous, and I loved the idea that I could have this office space and then my bedroom space, and I was getting these ideas, and then I was like, nah. And my dad, who is super, super frugal, like I was shocked when he said this to me. He was like, this place has got you written all over it. And I was like, I thought the simple place had me written all over it. Like, I is simple and plain. It is simple and plain. We be simple and plain together. Apartment and resident. What do you mean? And so he's looking at this cool, like it was simple, but in like an artsy, historic kind of way. And he's like, this got you. And I was like, who me then? And I sent a video to my friend and she said the same thing. She's like, this got you written all over it. And I was like, who are we talking about?
Who is this you?
Who is this? Who have I not met me? What's going on? And so it set me into this crazy, like self-reflective, overthinking, just state of mind where I'm like, why is it that I can't like allow myself to want this really, really cool place? And part of me was like, well, because the rent's too much. And then I was like, but something in my head was like, I don't think it's that the rent's too much. Yeah. Like it's more, but I don't know that it's that. And so through lots of self-reflection, I'm very reflective. And then through conversations with my pastor, I realized that this was something in me that's like a mentality of a mix of and or not feeling like I deserve really nice things or not feeling like I need really nice things and thus not allowing myself to want them. Because I grew up in a very frugal household because, I had teachers for parents, so it's not like we had a lot of money. So I was used to that. Like I'm not the kind of person who's used to wanting nice things and getting them. I mean, I'm the kind of person who's used to seeing nice things, calling them nice, and continuing walking. Like it doesn't, like it's not even like I'm sad about it. I'm like, cute, bye-bye. And so that was really something that was interesting. And then do you want to explain the Shark Tank thing with the whole environment?
Well, it's well, yeah, let's lead into that because there's a few things that you mentioned that I was like, all right, because and that we already touched on, but a lot of it's going to be most likely rehashed to you because I just talked about it. Yeah. But go ahead and mention that what you mentioned about environment and stuff.
Okay, so I heard somewhere, the internet, so it must be true, that fish, either all fish or some fish, at least some fish, potentially all fish, grow based on the size of the tank that they're in. And so when I was thinking about these two places, like it occurred to me, what kind of tank would each of these apartments be? Because this is a huge new season of my life. I'm living completely on my own in a new place with a new job. Like this is like my entrance to adulthood. With no more calling line to see if the director can help. Like, I'm in it.
Yeah.
And so I'm in it, and it's just, I'm like, okay, well, what's this place going to be for me? And that's not even the thing I'd ever thought of. Like, we didn't have the money to say, how can we make this the kind of place that has an impact on it? It was just like, no, this is where we live. This is the dining room, this is the living room, the bedroom. This is what it is.
Yeah.
And so I thought to myself, what's this going to be? And I realized that the cheaper, plainer apartment, that wouldn't inspire me to grow at all. That would continue reinforcing this idea that I am simple and I am plain. And that I don't need, and like, it's like, I don't need nice things. So it doesn't even matter if I want nice things. It doesn't even matter if I deserve nice things. I don't need them. So what's the point in going after them? And versus like this nicer apartment that according to some apparently has me written all over it. This me that I'm not, I guess, super well acquainted with yet. This place could inspire me to grow elements of myself that other people see that I don't. This is the kind of place that I could walk into after a hard day of teaching, because I love it, but man, sometimes this is a struggle. And I might walk in going, am I a good teacher? Can I do this? And then I walk into this gorgeous, really, really cool apartment that makes me really happy to be there. And that makes me feel like, yeah, like you got here. Like, you are blessed by the Lord to get here. So it's not like you got yourself here, but it's not like you don't deserve to be here. There's nothing about you that doesn't deserve a nice apartment.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Yeah. Well, the thing is that, and I'm just going to go ahead and not only chime in, but kind of tear into this, but the thing is that environment is like super, super powerful. All right. And one of the things, like, you had apartment A, which was like plainer, was kind of speaking to where you are at right now, at least how you perceive yourself right now. And so you have this, and in the Word of God and just in life in general, if you're going to live a life that is worth anything, really, there's a call for growth. There's a call for more. You'll see every person in the Bible had a call for more. Even the ones who turned on God, Saul, Samson, you have there's a call for more. There's a call for greater. And so you see in even us in the New Testament, we're to be fashioned after Christ, right? So our entire life is dedicated to becoming like Jesus, so that we are in the image of God. All right. So we're never going to escape it. So we have to be in a position of growth. And so one of the things that we have to be very, very careful in, which first and foremost is not to make decisions based off of growth, and not make decisions based off of where you're at right now and who you are today, which is a great thing that you didn't do that and you're making a better decision. So, but then, okay, so that's number one. But then after that, you have the being in a place that speaks to you. All right. One of the things that, I love what you said just a while back ago, before we started recording this, was about your environment and how it speaks to you. And one of the things that I found out about myself recently, we're going to hopefully within the next few days get a new background, new setup, and a cool few things for like a workstation. And I'm sitting there and I'm putting it together, and I'm like, okay, so what's going to speak to me? What's going to, like, when I look at it, when I sit down in my work area, because right now all we have is like logos back there, what is going to cause me to reflect and remember things that are going to stretch me. So one of the things I wanted to do was get this is kind of weird, but it's a piece of art that I wanted to create, and that is I get a little toy lion that's roaring at me. All right, a little toy lion that's roaring at me, and then put in Scrabble letters around it, conquer him. And what that is goes back to what we find in the book of Proverbs. There's a story that kind of like throws your mind for a loop, but Solomon writes, and he talks about a weak man, or I don't know if he said foolish man, but he said something about a man going out and saying that there's a lion in the way. There's a lion in my path. And he doesn't go out there and conquer that lion. He doesn't go out there and do anything about the lion. In fact, he runs from the lion. And the lion represents things that could be fearful for us: struggles, internal struggles, external battles, and the reason why I wanted to get a toy lion and not get like a picture or anything that was like a regal lion was because in reality, the fears that we face 99.999% of the time, they're toys. They're things that, and kids play with toys. You don't want to play with toys. You want to, it's like, it's a figment of the imagination most of the time. Right. And so we have the power and ability to conquer it. That's why I wanted to get a little cheap little $6 toy lion to remind myself that I need to go out there, conquer my fears, and 9 times out of 10, or maybe even 10 times out of 10, the fear that I'm coming up against is fake. It's false. It's not real. And at the height of it roaring, that's why I wanted to get it roaring, is when it's screaming to you the loudest. That's when you go out and conquer the lion. Right. And so just having pieces like that in your environment to speak to you and about that next level of growth, and what we're seeing in your situation, Sister Carmen, Sister Bizarri, is just that. So I wanted to point those 2 things out. First, don't make decisions based off where you're at, and now base your decision off of where you want to be. And then also your environment, like hyper speaks to you. And what is it speaking to you? Some people can't control their environments. That's fine. But when you're in the position to control your environment, how is it growing you? And then things about that is when your environment begins to speak to you and begins to talk to you. Hold on real quick. Let me see. Via your obstacles is something you can conquer. Exactly. That's what's up. But when that happens, then you have then you begin to, it's a lead in. It's a lead in for you to explore. All right. Explore more about you. All right. And so for me, I'm sitting over here and I'm thinking about the pieces of art that I wanted. And then I figure out that I actually like art, and then from there, it's like, okay, so now I actually like creating art. There's another piece of art that I want to create that has to do with a deck of cards. Right. And I'm like, I actually like art. And if I indulge in that, if I take that step in that direction, what else is going to unfold? What areas of my life am I going to figure out? Because I was able to step out and explore more of who I am. Right. So you take that next step when your environment, when you're in a position, when your environment's speaking to you, and you have to be careful because like Gideon, his environment, or he felt as if he was a product of environment. I'm the least of, my father's house, and my father's house is the least in all of Benjamin, so he felt really, really low about where he was at. And it was God who was waking him up to the reality of who he was. Well, Moses, we contrast that with Moses, and he was taught that he was not a product of his environment. Right? You are not an Egyptian. You are an Israelite. You worship one God. And his mom put that inside of him so that he didn't, when he was in his environment didn't overtake him, and he succumbed to his environment. And so you have to have people, you have to have individuals, generally pastors, mentors, parents, people, friends sometimes can even be that in an instance, in a season where they come and they're speaking to you to remind you of what you truly are and that you're not a product of your environment. Right. And so that's one of the things that, Carmen, in your story testimony that you're sharing with us, you talked with friends, you talked to your dad. It's like, well, this is you. This is more you than you know. Which oftentimes that could be, that's a good thing, right? And there's times where other, people come in your life to tell you about, the negative side of that. Let's say the flip coin, where it's like you're more you than this is more you than what you think, So there's definitely those elements, but that you so getting back to the whole environment and stuff like that, you bring those things are lead-ins to explore more about yourself, right? And the things that you like. So I don't know where the whole art deal may go. I would consider myself more of like a pretty boxed in, simple person. My favorite color is white. Like this is not, it'd be considered very plain, but then I sometimes take an angle. It's all the colors that are like mixed together, anyway. But so yeah, I thought that would be great to share. But go ahead and chime in, Carmen, with because I know that you were gonna mention some things after that, particularly about the whole lead-in things.
Well, one of the things that when you were talking about like the art, it got me thinking about, this statement, surround yourself with inspiration to grow. And it reminded me of, you've said before that you heard that people are like, I think it was you who said like you are like the sum total of the 5 people you hang out with the most. Like even socially, your social environment, the people impact you. But like when you were talking about the art, it reminded me, I read this quote somewhere. It was about writing, and I can't remember who said it. It wasn't me. It was somebody probably very good at writing. They said, they said something along the lines of, I started writing the books I wanted to read. And so as you were talking about your art, like it occurred to me that, maybe originally, and this may or may not have happened with you, maybe originally you started off thinking like, oh, I would like to find a piece that looks like this. But then like you kind of said, oh, maybe I would want it to like add this. I would want the Scrabble letters. I would want the toy lion. And all of a sudden now your desire to see art has become a desire to make art. And so it's like, even just putting yourself in that situation, like inspires you to grow even without really thinking about it. Same thing with me with this apartment. Like, it's got brand new appliances. Fun fact about me, I cook a mean cereal. Like I don't cook. I can do, like, I can, but in comparison to other people who like can cook, I can't cook. But the thing is like with these nice appliances, like every time I walk in, they're going to be like, use this, like, cook with us, be grown up. These are grown up appliances, be grown up. Or like with this gorgeous apartment, because like in a plain apartment with plain walls, plain everything, I would be like, all right, just grab whatever, furniture someone will give me and put it together, and then just have, hodgepodge equals the style of this apartment. But with this gorgeous place, now I'm thinking about like decor, which is not something that I ever really considered myself to be like interested in. But I'm like, oh, okay, well, what colors would look good with this and with that? And so it's just
Pinterest, use Pinterest.
A whole Pinterest board. I have a board labeled apartment, and it's got all kinds of exposed bricks and plants. I've decided I want plants everywhere in my apartment because it's going to look great. They're going to be fake because I have one window, but like, and so I've got all these ideas, and all of a sudden now I'm thinking of like a style and a vibe that I want. Like I'm impacting my space instead of just letting my space impact me. And thus I'm giving my space the impact to have on me. Like I'm nothing passive in this situation. I am taking complete action and ownership and initiative here. And all because I allowed myself to consider why I wanted it, or why, because like it didn't even, like, oh goodness, it didn't occur to me to even consider it until my frugal dad, who I never would have imagined saying take the more expensive apartment, said I would sign the lease today if I was you. That was shocking to me. Like, that's what jolted me out, and I was like, well, huh? And that's what started that conversation. But and some people would say like they would have looked, and people did, of course my dad did too, but like people would say, oh, you're overthinking, because I thought about like, oh, like why is it that I like this apartment more? Why? Some people would say that's overthinking, that's unnecessary. But if I hadn't thought about it, that wouldn't have helped me realize the situation that I'm in, the impact that my space could have on me, because I chose to reflect on not only what I was struggling with, but why I was struggling with it. That was a huge deal. So overthinking's not always great, but it's not always the worst.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy is that, you see that, that one moment, like you said, that jolted you, that like, hey, whoa, wake up. And then now the thinking, the analyzing, then you're able to see into all these different areas of not only like, the things that, like, as we talked about, that could possibly be holding you back in other areas, that type of that catching the balance between frugality and then experiencing life, or actually living life, which I don't think a lot of people actually, I think a lot of people are skewed towards the frugal side rather than the actually experiencing life. Now there's some, well, anyway, and that's something that we'll talk about in a second, because I think that would be an interesting conversation to have. I don't think it's a conversation that has been had, especially within Christendom or the Apostolic movement, let's just say specifically. But anyway, at least that I've heard of. So, but that, that jolting and that waking up and that moving into that new environment, now you're literally like exploring a lot more different options, and that's one of the things that you'll see in I read some of the most current literature on habits and stuff like that, and how to create habits, how to break habits and all that stuff. And one of the things that is like a massive player in why you do what you do is your environment. And so this is what they will say, all right, is if you want to start cooking, put money into the appliances, literally put money into the appliances, because those things you just invested what, $200-300 into appliances. They're going to be looking at you. And when you put them in, don't put them underneath in the cabinets down there. Don't put it underneath the stove top, or don't do anything like that. All right. Bring it out, put it in the open. So when you're walking around, you're like, wait a second. I told myself I was going to cook. I told myself I was going to bake. Get the big expensive knives and stick them up where you can see them every single day. All right. Because those things will speak to you. Another thing, which is what I remember I wanted to get an entire wall that was like almost like, how would you describe it? Kind of like hardwood flooring, but steel, and then have welded inside of each panel a scripture, so that when I looked at the wall, I'm seeing Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one Lord. When I look at the wall, one Lord, one faith, one baptism. I look at it, it's telling me about, I don't know, men stuff. He who looketh upon a woman to lust after, don't do that. You're going to go to hell, So, but having your environment speak to you, and that's actually literally like what, again, like I said, the most current literature on habits and the way your mind works and stuff is saying. And so you being in that environment, you being in that place. Let me check this comment real quick. We don't have. Oh, I see. All right. So, oh, okay. I see. Yeah. How that could be. Okay, cool. So I got you on that. But, yeah. So, I mean, it's just, you having your environment speak to you, and then you put those things out there. And then now that you have that, those things speaking to you, now you're growing in those areas. Now you're exploring cooking, you're exploring, walking your dog or getting a dog or something to walk around the neighborhood. You're exploring things that you probably never would have explored if you didn't take that next step into something else that was bigger, that was greater, that was different. And oftentimes we want to stay in our comfort zones. We want to stay in what's normal. We want to stay in what's safe, even when it comes to like revival and things like that. We want to just, people magically appear at church. And because we know how to pray them through the baptism of the Holy Ghost, I don't know, door knocking, or, some people are good with the door knocking, but they're not good with the street preaching. Some people are good with the street preaching, but they're not good with, being outside of the friends and the synergy and being in their work environment and just witnessing someone there. Some people are good in the work environment, but if they have to street preach, they clam up, So it's like, always be expanding yourself, always be looking for different things to stretch yourself, because you never know what you'll find. That one decision between just apartments, it's just a housing situation. But that one decision now opens up doors that can impact so many different areas of your life. And it's not about I learned to cook so I can cook for, our church's food pantry. It doesn't always have to be directly tied into something that's big and meaningful. But as long as it's like, it means something to you, you created something and you feel better about yourself. It's like it could be even that simple. So yeah, that's a good deal. And then I could keep talking, but I mean there's a lot. But all right, so let's use that to kind of leverage into adventure. All right, because that's what we started on. And if you look at all these things, going outside of your comfort zone, getting outside of your comfort zone, that is literally like an adventure, if you want to think about it. Okay, so Carmen, I know you know literature and stuff like that, stories and stuff. You're a teacher, and but one of the things that you see is like you can correct me if I'm wrong, okay, because I'm in the face of an expert, but all stories, all right, have some sense of adventure in them. Would you say that's kind of like the reality? An adventure of romance, an adventure of love, an adventure of creativity. There's some things. Do you know the Hero's Two Journeys? Okay, so that is like what that has dominated the movie industry over the past 15 years. That storyline, the Hero's Two Journeys, the external, the internal adventure, right? And the journey of transformation. And so that is like a really, really huge, big thing. And I was talking to my younger brother a few days ago, and I was talking to him about adventure. And some things, hit people different. Some people are motivated and inspired to make a change or make a difference. Other people are inspired to, I don't know, do like travel the world, right? But in that, I think that so I was talking to him about adventure, like what's the adventure, and I was trying to like set things out that would hit for him. And here's the deal: it's like for me, like I'm on an adventure with Yapa and the fire starter community. I'm on an adventure to like change the way we do things in the apostolic movement and impact. Well, maybe not change the way we do things, more so just impact as many people as we can, to start fires in as many in as many young people as possible to actually do something, young apostolic power in action, right? So that's my adventure. But there's like so many different like adventures that you can go on, and it doesn't always have to be like just imagine, let your imagination like run wild. Like one of the things that I was anyway, just when you do that, when you like get outside your comfort zone, it's exhilarating. You're comfortable with you feeling the way you feel normally, but when your stomach turns, when you jump out of a plane, or when you bungee jump, or when you're on a roller coaster, like subbing in math class, yeah. So, but when you do that, you're like you're way out of your comfort zone. But that's where you conquer your fears, growth. There's so much there. And so I was thinking about that over the past, not just when I talked to him, but even a couple of days before. It's like, how much adventure are you creating in your life? How much adventure are you seeking in your life? And you can take Jesus with you, and not in the sense of like, okay, God, follow me as I do my life, but in the sense of you have you have the principles of the Word of God living inside of you. So for instance, it may not be the wisest thing for a single young apostolic to go travel the world, right, by themselves and doing all that stuff. There's a lot of traps, but what if you do something similar, but you found a network of all of the churches that are connected with one another, and you went and you traveled around, and that's like a very like vivid or a good visual, very, I don't know, I don't want to say normal, but that's the sense of adventure that's pretty commonly used, traveling, but there's many different ways, like adventure with Yapa, like you overcome, there's so many, it's like, yeah, it's crazy. So anyway, so one of the things I want to chime in on that is that like with you actively going out and doing different things and experiencing different things, and growing in those areas, you're like creating this adventure in your life that you can actually like, and it makes you happy about your life. makes you like, yeah, you're like, dude, I like this thing. Listen, we're going to have enough negativity coming in our lives. You know, no one lives forever. You know, my grandpa, excuse me, he just passed in December of 2020. And so we're just a few months out from that. No one's going to live forever. You know, it's just not going to happen. All right. What else? I mean, we're going to have travesties and tragedies in our lives. We might as well fight when we're in the season of like, oh yeah, this is that kind of just coasting season. We might as well fight for something that's very, very like to go ahead, get after it.
And the thing with the one of the many I guess benefits, but like the power of an adventure is that when you have a goal, when there's something, and so when you said like every story has an adventure, almost every story has like a conflict and a conflict resolution, which is, you can call it an adventure if you want to. Sometimes it is.
I call that adventure.
Like there's something to be conquered. There's some problem to be solved. Otherwise, we're bored most of the time. Some good writing, you can go without a conflict and be interested, but most of the time, like, we long to see people conquer things. And so the power of an adventure is like when you inevitably hit obstacles, hit people, dissing you or downing what you're doing, or just, being rude to you while you're waiting to get your meal. Like there's plenty of negativity that you're going to get, even like negativity in the adventure. Like, I mean, Yapa's a big crazy thing, but there's no way that you did everything perfectly as you were going. Like, it's amazing, but part of the process.
No.
So, but the thing is, and this even I've realized with teaching, like sometimes I hope you haven't experienced this, Yapa, because like I don't want anyone to experience this, but there were days when I taught a lesson that just flopped. Like I was so excited and it just died in front of me. And I'm just sitting there going, oh, what am I doing? What do I do? What do I do? But the thing is my goal was bigger than that. My job wasn't to execute one perfect lesson. It was to teach them for a year to help them grow. And so when I have that in my head, I can see, yeah, this day was not great, but here's what I can do with this day tomorrow that can help them grow. Here's how I can explain to them. All right, guys, see how it's okay to be imperfect. Your teacher just tried something that didn't work. Like I'm not allowed to say you're allowed to have a first draft that you change because not everything's done right the first time, but then act like, you have to be perfect with every lesson you teach. So even with that, but also someone could say, hey, Carmen, how do you feel about teaching? I could be like, it's hard. It's a struggle. There is so much, but never a doubt in my mind. Is it worth it? Is it not like worth it? Like of course it's worth it. It like struggle's part of it. And when you're on this adventure and you understand how adventures work and you realize that struggle's part of it and that you're allowed to struggle, you're allowed to hit obstacles because hitting obstacles is part of the adventure, but the rest of the adventure is overcoming them. Like you get the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so when you've got this adventure that you're on, whatever it is, whether it's like a small adventure that's like, I'm just going, like if it's like within the next week, this is the adventure I'm gonna do. This is what I'm gonna have. The new experience I'm gonna do, the way I'm gonna bless somebody, whatever. When like it's having a purpose, whether that's your call, whether that's a specific adventure that will help you, that is what you mean. You can make anything have some type of meaning or value to you, even a loss, anything. If you have a purpose guiding it. If you have no purpose, if you have no intentional adventure at all, or if you have no ability to recognize an adventure that sort of appeared in front of you, then you're gonna feel more aimless. You're those obstacles. If you're not looking at an adventure, if you're not looking at any purpose, all you gonna see is that obstacle. Because what else do you have to look at?
Yeah. No, that is so true. No, but it's crazy is that no one really talks. I want to touch on this real quick, but and then get into something that I think is a really interesting concept and idea. But when it's like having, and that's one of the reasons why we even did the call master class. It's like what, 4 hours of content just on how to find the call of God for your life, because excuse me, there is a necessity for um you actually like having that goal, that purpose, that driver, and having that driver is something that is like absolutely like massive. They say the only way you move a stubborn mule, which we are, we can definitely be stubborn at times, is either with a stick or a carrot. And the best way to move them is with both. And so if you're trying to move yourself, get yourself along, you have your bad habits, you have your stinking thinking, as I've heard leaders put it. But you have those things. It's like all those you're gonna have to get to the place to where you have a call from God. And when you know the call from God, generally it comes with a carrot and a stick. What's the carrot? All right, so for Yapa, it's doing the having we talked about this on a GCC before. Yeah. We talked about the carrot and the stick. Well, the carrot for Yapa is being able to impact hundreds of thousands of people. That's our goal, millions of people. And our goal would be to have billions of people impressed by Yapa, or impressions pretty much, where they get touched with a message from Yapa. That's a huge, massive goal. It's like a 10-15 year goal. I don't know how that's huge. Right. And then what's the benefit of it? What's the carrot? The carrot is the thing where the mule wants to go after it. Okay. That get up in the morning and drive and move. And that would be able to like make a difference, in people's lives. That's crazy. That's awesome. And then the stick, what's the stick? The thing that would, when you don't want to do it, when maybe you don't see the carrot in front of you that drives you, is the fact that this is what you're called to do by God. And if you don't do what God called you to do, you're in danger. Jonah. All right. There is I don't see where, like, there was this in the story of Jonah. I don't see where there is this guarantee that he wasn't going to stay in the belly of the whale for 3 days. I just don't see the guarantee. If someone finds it, please, DM me, let me know, because I want to see that in the scripture. But it was like he got swallowed by a whale. And then what got him out of the belly of the whale? I believe it was his prayers. He prayed to God and God moved. What if he didn't pray? Would God have moved? So it's like you have no like leeway. Like don't try to don't try to miss it. Like don't like do the will of God. That's a pretty big stick. All right, that's a rod. Yeah, boom, boom, boom. Get me to get up and go. Yeah, it's a cattle prod. To get up and go and to move, right? And so you need a carrot and a stick, but you need to have your goal, your calling, and that's one of the things that you're talking about is like that driver. Is that, or I would say both of those things are drivers, the carrot and the stick. To what's the goal? Okay, why am I doing this? And it makes it worthwhile. But one of the things that I kind of wanted to say, and I don't think a lot of people think about this, is okay, so mini adventures. Now, this isn't, get away to San Francisco for a day because it's only 2-hour drive for you. Wherever you live, it's not getting away to a big city and having an adventure or driving cross country or anything like that. All right. I think that, kind of going back to the lion example, one of the reasons why I wanted this piece of art is that I believe that you can create adventure, like you said, when you have conflict and conflict resolution. I think that is like if you were to trim down the fat on the term or the idea of adventure, I think you'll just get down to that. It all boils down to a conflict resolution. And so the idea is that face conflict. Now, how many times do we face conflict in our lives? Now, if that's the crux of an adventure is to have conflict, then we're presented every single day with the opportunity to go on an adventure. And I call those things mini adventures. All right. So, but what's on the other side of that is growth. It's a new, just imagine like, okay, so in California, living next to the Sierra Nevadas, we're about 2 hours from Tahoe. I remember one day we decided to hike up some peak valley, whatever. I don't think you hike valleys, but I think you hike peaks. Anyway, so you go to the peak, and we went to overlook Tahoe. So we're over there. I was young, I was 14, and I was over there climbing and everything, feeling good about myself and my jeans and my Converse, because that's definitely hiking gear, especially if you're from California, as you so aptly experienced, Carmen, when we had. So anyway, so I'm wearing my jeans, wearing my Converse and everything. And we go up, get into the summit. I remember I'm standing up there, and there's, a few people up there, some people not part of our party. And I'm looking over Tahoe, and I'm like, wow, this is a great view. This is crazy. And I'm really experiencing it as a 14-year-old kid. I'm like, wow, this is crazy. And then I take a deep breath and I turn around and I look at the other side of Tahoe. And I look and I'm like, there's just mountains after mountains after mountains after mountains after mountains after mountains after mountains. And I vividly remember that, like it's a snapshot in my head, because I felt really small compared to the giant normulus sun. And then the huge mountains that I knew that if I were placed on the opposite side of that side of the mountain, you wouldn't even be able to see me. Like it would take like a telescope that reached to Mars, even just to find me on that. So I take that snapshot and I look and I'm like, dude, that's adventures. When you have that big conflict, you conquer that one mountain, and then there's millions more. Now, that could be dejecting to some, but if you were to go a million mountains away from where I was at, all right, and you begin to conquer those or have those adventures, those conflicts and conflict resolutions, well, who would have known that the millionth mountain that you crossed would have been Tahoe? Some of the clearest waters in the world, all right, at least in the top 20 clearest waters in the world. You had, and then a million mountains after that, you have the Pacific Ocean. Then a million miles after that, you have, China and Japan and the Orient. And then a million miles, so there's so much world to experience. Yeah, there's so much world, so much life to experience beyond that conflict that you're experiencing right now. So you what do? When you have a conflict, you rise to the occasion, you get to the top of the mountain, and then when you resolve it in the resolution, you've crossed that mountain, and that's the mini adventure. And so say it, even if your voice quakes. Press, even if you don't want to press, and there's all these obstacles. Remember the man, again, in Proverbs, I need to get the scripture reference in my brain, seared in there, but the man in Solomon says that you don't be the dude who sees a lion and doesn't do nothing about it. Go kill the lion. If you don't conquer that thing can conquer you, your kids, your family, and terrorize your nation, because you didn't conquer that thing that was in your power to conquer. All right, go ahead. I saw your hand
up. So actually one of the wins, and I'm glad that this didn't come up earlier because it's now much more relevant here. Another one of the wins that Aviel mentioned that I've experienced this week that we sort of talked about before was that, okay, I'm a high school English teacher, okay? I've always liked English. I've always liked reading, always liked writing. Struggled with math. I did well because I worked hard, but I really, really struggled. And so because I'm subbing right now in preparation for my new job, the math teacher, one of the math teachers at the high school where I sub at, she is very pregnant, like due to be induced Monday, like very pregnant. And so months ago, she'd asked me, she's like, so Carmen, how do you feel about math? And my exact response to her was, what do you mean? Because no, like part of my identity is that I don't like math. Like that's part. I love English and I hate math. Like I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean math? I was like, she's like, I need someone to sub for when I have my baby. And I said, what would be required in this? because if I have to teach them, they will not learn because I will not know how to teach them. And she was like, I will record everything for you. You will just have to push buttons, and my words, not hers, make sure nobody dies. Like babysitting and pressing a few buttons. And she asked me because I had student taught there, so I knew a lot of the students. I work well with high schoolers, so it made sense. But math, and everyone I told who knew me before this, whenever I say I'm going to be a math sub, they're like, why you? Because it's a part, like, I don't do math. Mm-hmm. And so then yesterday she wanted me to go in and observe how her class runs, so that when she does, have her baby, I'm not going in and learning from the students how things work, because some of them will tell the truth and some of them won't. So
we don't have homework. She never gives us homework.
No, she lets us go to the bathroom, immediately after the bell ring, like just that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And also just like answering questions, because she's like hyper organized, so she wanted to make sure that I was well equipped to help her, because she gonna have babies, so she gonna be busy. Yeah. So yesterday, I am 23 years old. I have not had a math class since freshman year statistics. It's 4 years from then. And stats was a whole thing. I haven't had algebra in a while. So this is algebra and pre-calc. Pre-calc is the first one. I don't speak pre-calc. So I'm just sitting there and I'm like, nope. But then we get to algebra, which is the students that need more extra help. Because the kids in pre-calc, they can do what they're doing. And I'm looking at this and I realize that I get it. And I'm like, what? Like, this is like if you were to speak only English and then look at like Chinese and realize you can read it. Like this, I was like, what? Wait, what? How do I get this? And then like, and this isn't to say it all came back to me perfectly. Like I had to ask her questions. Okay, well, so what's the formula for this? How do you get that? But like, as I was looking at it, her answer key, it made sense how she got, and I was like, who am I? I don't, hold on, wait. And it was, and this is one example of like, of a small adventure. In one day, I went from seeing myself as someone who cannot do math to, by the end of the day, she had decided that she was going to have me teach their last unit of new information because wow. I got it.
Yeah.
And because she's like, okay, well, because some of them had expressed, a little bit of nervousness at having a non-math person be their math teacher, which makes sense.
Yeah.
She's like, if you know this, then you can teach it and you can increase their confidence in you. And so now, and this was my second day, I was walking around. It felt like I was in my English class, just like when I walk around and help them with their papers. I'm walking around going, no. There's a difference between an x-coordinate and an x-intercept. This is this. And I'm like, what language am I speaking? Like,
yeah, you lost me already.
I know. I'm just like, it's crazy. I was like, who am I? And last night, I was having fun doing math. Like I purposely, like she gave me a huge binder. I was doing practice problems and I sent a picture to my brother who loves math. And he's like, there's no way you did that. That's physics. You can't do that math. And I was like, apparently I can. So a couple morals of the story. One, just because there's an obstacle you didn't think you could beat or that you didn't beat before does not mean you cannot beat it again or beat it later.
Yeah.
Like there's no saying that at all. And I give the Lord complete credit for helping me remember that, because
creds on Jesus right there.
Creds on Jesus. Like I had no desire to remember it. I thought I had no ability to remember it. Like there is no reason I should have been able to remember that stuff and be able to learn it. But because that's what and the way I see it is like, that's what my kids need. That's what my students need. They need someone there who can help them. They need someone who can make them feel comforted. Like their leader needs to make them feel safe and led, not like, all right, watch the video.
Yeah.
So there's that. Plus, one thing that I was thinking is you were talking about like what a mini adventure sort of does or is like, in my opinion, an adventure is something that changes you, whether it's a big change or a little change. It has an impact on who you are. So yesterday was a huge mini adventure for me because like, it's like a whole new aspect of me. So So that was crazy about who I am. And it also changed how my students viewed me, because I had freshmen in my English class who heard me say I couldn't do math and I'm helping them. I can only imagine what they're thinking. Like, either she lied or what's going on? Like, I have no idea. But
I thought she was a Christian.
I know, like, I don't even know. But it's, and the thing is I never, ever would have realized that I never would have had the chance to learn how to do algebra again unless I agreed to step into this sub position that I didn't feel qualified for, but there was a need for. Now, I'm not saying always do that. That's not what I'm saying. But like, God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called.
Amen.
So it's like that. So like if you have an experience, if there's something you conquer, like if you are not a rock climber and you go to a rock climbing place and you're not that type, but you get it, and suddenly you realize you're capable of more than you were, than you thought you were. You've had a little adventure. That was a little adventure. That's impacted you. That's changed you. And a lot of us, we've had things that have happened to us. Like, I've had some life changes and milestones that have happened to me in the last couple of years. And I look back to like before those things happened, and I'm like, I'm a different person. Like, that's an adventure. Like, you're impacted by adventure. So even if something doesn't feel like an adventure, the moment you decide to be impacted by it, which goes back to the reflection, you turn it into adventure. Now that's not just a loss. That's not just wasted time. That's something valuable that adds to you. And if anybody's worried about wasting time, like, I don't know if I'm the only one who gets anxiety about thinking that time was wasted or energy was wasted. Like, that freaks me out. But the moment I find a lesson in it, even if I found a loss too, it's not a loss anymore. It's a lesson. Mm-hmm. Like, it's
yeah, you go back and you take all your L's and you just turn them into lessons. You're like, okay, what did I learn from that? Yeah, you invert them, and then or actually not even invert them. It's like you use them for what they actually are. They're opportunities for growth. Yeah, you stack them up. L's for ladders. You move up. No, but one of the things that I think is super cool, because you talked about the rock climbing and just using that as an analogy, and I thought, like, the image that came to mind was, what if someone fails midway? You know, they're going up there, they're climbing, and then that thought led to, but they tried. And is there anything wrong with trying? Now, the thing is that there is nothing wrong with trying. And here's the thing is that, and then from there it links to, or at least in my brain, it linked to the reality of you growing, is that you do things that are uncomfortable and you do things that you almost can't do. And that is you get to the outside edges of your current capacity. You get right to the very edge, and you strive for something that pushes you, that's around that edge, right? And so to the person who maybe never, and you'll surprise yourself. And even if you fail, you were, it's almost like working out. It's almost like, you know, you get in the gym and you're pushing weight. You don't use, a 1 pound bar or whatever in order to bench, right? You don't use like stuff that you use all the time. You know, if you can move your arms up and down 40 times, and it's okay, well, you may want to increase the weight. So what do? In order to build or to grow muscle, you have to get to that place to where you're really like almost, I don't want to say almost failing, but you push yourself to the place to where you're at the outside edges of your capacity. Right? Good.
So funny to hear you talking about educational psychology without labeling it educational psychology. Because one of the things that we learn when it comes to the development of a child and then an adolescent's brain is that the way that we learn is by being pushed. We have to be pushed to a point where it's still where you can do the thing with help. Because if you can do it without help, that means you already know how to do it. You don't need to learn.
Yeah.
But if you can't do it with help, that's too far. So you put your students at a place where they can do it if they have help. Without help, they can't do it, but with help, they can. And so the amazing thing is that, I mean, one, the power of a mentor, but like also the power of like the Bible and the Lord. I mean, just,
yeah.
So it's, if if you're in a situation where everything's easy, then you're not going to grow. I mean, even like, and again, English teacher.
Real quick. You won't. It's not that you won't. It's not only that you won't grow. Is that you'll atrophy. You'll disintegrate. Okay, go ahead.
But anyways, one of the tragically simple things about becoming a good reader or a good writer is just reading more. And the way that you become a better reader is by reading books that, like, I don't know what the exact statistics are, but like 90% of the words you know, but then 10% you don't. That's how you get an increased vocabulary, because you know enough that you can understand what's happening and you can use context clues to help figure out what those other words mean and learn how to use them. Like, that's not a big change. Like, that's something manageable.
Yeah.
And so it is important to put yourself in situations where maybe you don't know how to do it, but you can with help. I mean, so much of teaching is that. Like, I have students like, I can't do it. And then I'm like, all right, so if we're doing this, which formula would you use here? And they say, okay, do this. Like, if you can do it with help, then you grow, because eventually you won't need the help anymore and you can move on to another thing that you can't do without help yet, but then you'll get the help and you'll keep moving.
So what's crazy is that I don't know if you know too much about like gym stuff, but the whole idea of a spotter. All right, the whole idea of a spotter. Okay, yeah, someone where if they're helping you, if they're if they're spotting you on the bench press, or they're spotting you squatting, which I think is very awkward, but I never had a spotter when I squatted. No, it just doesn't happen. I just won't use that heavy a weight. But I'll get like, I'll ratchet in that outside edge of my capacity just a little bit, because I'm not having no dude help me. No. Anyway, I think it's just odd. So but what happens is, or at least the idea of a spotter is someone there when you get to failure or close to failure. So let's say you're on your 12th rep or your 13th or your 14th, and you're going for your 15th, and your body's saying no. Your mind's saying, yes, I can get 15, but your body's saying, let's put this down. Well, your spotter comes in and helps you. He'll take the weight up and he'll lift the weight. He'll help you. He won't, let's say you're benching 115 pounds, whatever. If you're benching 115 pounds, he's not going to go in there and pick the 115 pounds up, even if he can. There's some strong guys out there, but he will take off at least 15 or 20 pounds, just enough to where you can get it yourself. A good spotter. A bad spotter will actually, I've seen people like, they try to go help the person they trip and end up pushing the weights on them. And this is when the dude has like 4 plates on each side. So it's like 400 pounds and and then he has another 200 from his homie that's on him. It's like, that's a bad spotter. Okay. But a good spotter would be there to just take off just enough to where you can get the weight up. That's a good spot. And so it goes back to what you were saying about the child development or educational psychology. It's like just enough where you could do it with help. And then it also kind of brings me back to how we're supposed to live in the Word. All right. God calls you to when he calls you to do something, generally it's uncomfortable. Generally, it's not that you can't do it, Abram. Hey, come out of the Ur of the Chaldees, come out of the land of your kindred, come over here. I got better for you. It's not that Abram couldn't do it. He proved that he could. All right. But it was a shift. It was a change. It was something different. Moses, he's go to my people, Moses, and say this to Pharaoh after his burning bush experience. Say this. Well, he's going, and then the whole deal with the angel shows up. It's like a four verse story, 4 to 8 verses, and the angel shows up to kill someone, right? And Zipporah, Moses' wife, she circumcises Moses' child because he wasn't circumcised. And then she's like, "You're a bloody man, Moses." No, anyway, so it wasn't that Moses couldn't go out there, but there's some things that have to go, things that have to change, things that have to be different before you go and you can continue to fulfill on the call of God. And so if God's going to call you, if God's going to take you somewhere, you're literally like, you're going to have to change or shift something as you move. And that's going to cause uncomfortability. And that's actually going to grow you. It's the same thing. Go ahead.
And this occurred to me, I think, with something you said, like, probably a long while ago, but then now it's recurred to me because of what you're saying, is like, the thing about the Lord is like, what we were designed to be, like, that is why we feel at home and at peace with him. But what we are, we're not exactly what we were designed to be. So it's like, in interacting with God, at least with the current forms that we have, there's discomfort involved, like, but in dying to your flesh. Even like anytime like men in the Bible were sort of in God's presence, it did not make, nobody was sitting on their couch like, yeah, this is where I'm meant to be. They
What's
were
up,
like
God?
on the ground.
Yeah.
They were painfully aware of their sin, or they were unconscious. Like, I mean, the fact that God's like, your body cannot take being in my presence. Like, I feel like exploding is the highest form of discomfort you can possibly have. Like,
Probably
with God in the current, in part of our identities, part of it, because we have our soul that God designed to be with him. Like, part of that, like, discomfort's part of it. And I stress this so much with people I talk to, especially with my students, is like, when you understand that something is part of it, that, at least for me, makes it easier to endure it, because then I don't feel like I'm doing something wrong if I'm struggling. Like, discomfort, because like, I mean, even like when we read in the Bible that it says, like, I didn't know I was sinning until I saw the law, and I was like, oh
yeah, just said it.
Like, like, interacting with God as he is in the truth of who he is and in the truth of who he expects us to be, discomfort's part of that.
Mm-hmm.
But discomfort's not the end goal of it. Discomfort's not the purpose of it. Discomfort's just a part of it. It's part of the adventure.
Yeah. The conflict, the and then the resolution. And then when you get to, the thing is that you're never going to be able to you never get to the place where you're not going to, if you're living for God, experience discomfort. You're going to have to. There's going to be challenges. There's going to be spiritual wickedness in high places. There's going to be things that will come against you. So you're never going to be able to stop. Paul comes to mind. He got to the end of his life after fighting so much. He fought so much. He wrestled against, not with flesh and blood, but against principalities and powers, and, you know, he was stoned, he was beaten, he's like a whole bunch of stuff. And then the end of his life is, from what historians would say, is him being beheaded, whatever manner that was, an axe, a blade, whatever that meant. You're not going to escape discomfort. But what did he do? Is he doubled down, or triple down, or quadruple down, or maybe just left the idea of down as a dimension and got into the supernatural and counted his body just done. You know, it's just this, I'm going to put off this mortality, he's going to put on immortality. That's what Peter at least says when it was his time to go. He's like, oh, I'm okay. So it's almost like he was talking about changing clothes, you know. Okay, I'm going to just put this, he takes that off, put this on. It's like, so from the time that they were called, you know, they see this man from Galilee. He's walking on the shoreline. He points at them and says, hey, come follow me. I'll make you fishers of men. From that point until he's, according to historians, Peter being crucified upside down, there was no break in comfortability, in like discomfort. And Paul said that he's learned to be a base. He's learned to be, you know, in, out, up, down, everywhere, mixed up, jumbled, right? But in all those things, he was content. Content in what? Content in God. I'm not going to put words in you know, Paul's mouth or in the Bible, but you know, there was this form of contentment because God was with him the entire time. So adventure, life, being an adventure, you can create your own adventures. You can like the Bible being an adventure, but you know, but you can have these mini adventures where you conquer your fears. But at the end of the day, it's like, it's never get to a point to where you're like, okay, I'm done. I mean, you can get to that place, but not in a good way. Our race, we literally weren't created. We teach this in the Godly Dating Masterclass. Man and women were created to work. God gave Adam a mandate: be fruitful, multiply, replenish the earth, subdue it. Talked about keeping the garden, keeping it, warring for it, having a defense for it, right? So we were created for that work, and that work comes with conflict. The ground doesn't want to be tilled for whatever reason, right? There's whatever, just things that come up. So we're not going to escape it. There's no utopia. There's no like, oh, okay, I'm done. Even when you get to heaven. So yeah, adventure. Was there anything you wanted to chime in on?
One thing, and again, I thought of this earlier, but now it's more relevant. When you were talking about the mountains, climbing up one mountain and seeing a bunch of other ones, that reminded me of the fact that I know that for a while the human race thought the earth was flat, but like most of us are past that. So like is most of us past that. Yeah. We realize it's round. So like even if you look at the way God designed the world, like there's no point that you could get to that you can't keep going somewhere. Like it's all, and like if you make it all the way around this way, all you gotta do is
exactly. Yeah, 1 degree over.
We're not, like the adventure, like if we don't have the end of our planet, I mean our planet is this limited thing, but it's huge. So just because something is limited, just because our lifetimes are limited, doesn't mean that we should in any way assume that like we're done with something. Like the earth will be over when it's over. Yeah, it's over. Our life and our growth will be over when it's over, when we're dead. So it's like,
it's kind of funny to think about is when Paul talks about no height nor depth, and he starts naming different things. He mentions 4 things, and a lot of people are like, wow, that's kind of interesting because height and breadth, I forget what exactly the scripture says verbatim, but he mentions 4 different things. And so people talk about, just different, anyway, it can kind of get interesting with that conversation. But needless to say, it's like, if you want to think of like your analogy where you're circling around the earth and you move off a degree. All right. So you have this adventure around the earth, and then you move off a degree and you have another adventure. And just that 1 degree of difference causes so much difference. You don't walk the same path. You don't do the same things. You don't experience the same thing. You can be literally 1 degree off and be from, from the southern boot of Italy, Sicily, possibly, to Finland, depending on where you start, just because the way that the miles and everything extrapolates. So here's the deal, is that you move that 1 degree. After you're done getting around the 360 degrees, what's next? You land at the same spot, but time has a dimension that has elapsed. So what new things, what mountains are eroded? What new rivers are there? What new plant life is there? And so then you have to go on another trip, because now you're experiencing the dimension of time. And so at what point do you stop growing? What point do you stop having conflict and conflict resolution? What point do you stop going on an adventure? What point do you stop having many adventures? Our life on earth will expire before we're done. And so we might as well right now, and this is just a reminder, would probably have to remind ourselves quite sometimes and quite often in life, to remember that what you're going through is an adventure. Even the pain, the sorrow, and the suffering, that's an adventure. How do you fare in those waters, those troubled waters of life? Will you give up? Will you forsake God? You're experiencing an adventure. How is the story going to be written for you? And so, are you expanding yourself? Are you finding the little lions in your day that you can conquer and create a snowball effect? Because there is, you don't let fear stop you from doing some things, but there is a point where you can become fearless. Now, I'm not saying in everything. All right. I think in specific verticals. Okay. So like right now, I would say that, from the time I started driving to now, I'm not too scared of driving 4 or 5 miles to a grocery store. It's just I don't have any fear regarding that. I'm fearless. I don't have any fear with that. But why? When I first the whole driver's ed dude, he came over to my house. Like, okay, go get in the car. So I get in my left leg. Okay, you use your right foot for the. It was like he's like, relax, bro. I was like, I'm trying to, homie, but I don't know. I never. And I was a kid that I didn't like drive on the low. I didn't go out there, you know, what people were telling me, hey, come out, just man, it's just a spin. I'm like, no, I'm gonna do it right. All right. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna do it right. So that's one of the reasons why they call me goody goody. But I my leg was jumping. I've never driven before. And he's expecting me to take this 2.5-ton machine surrounded by other 2.5-ton machines about 70 miles an hour down. I've never done this before. And he's going to sit with me. His life's on the line. Now I'm responsible for mine and his. And I have a future. Okay. I'm trying to live. I thought I was going to get married sometime into that. Okay. I got a future, kids to live for, grandkids. And he's going to have me take this 2.5-ton, like I said, the vehicle around all these other. And then he has kids and they're going to come after me. Oh, man. So I'm thinking all of that. So my legs are boom, 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 boom. And I'm trying to drive. He's okay. And he's explaining it to me. So that's some fear. That's a lot to think about. Okay. That's a lot of, there's a line in the way. But if I let it stop me, then, you know, like I know some people, they won't fly because they're scared of flying. Even though statistically you'll see that you're more likely to get, you know, attacked by a shark than, die in a plane crash. All right. But they're just scared of it. All right. And so it's like, well, I didn't let that fear stop me from driving. Now it's like, okay, cool. You know, I've been in some pretty hairy scenarios where, you know, someone makes a wrong move and you have to make these weird different maneuvers in order to make sure you don't die. So what I'm saying is that you conquer the fear, you get past it, and that's what makes you fearless. One of the things I would say that makes you fearless is that you're at least for me, it's worked out to where's my fear? Oh, that's my fear. I hit it. There's a lion in the way. Okay, let's kill the lion. Let's capture him. Let's put him down. And now I can go further than the lion. The lion was stopping me from this point. Now I can go a couple miles in past that point. And yeah, I may experience some other things, but I'm no longer scared where that lion had first approached me, where that fear first interacted with me. I got the victory over it. Now I'm fearless. I don't have that type of fear. But you always need to be pressing into your fears. You'll have fear somewhere. Go ahead.
And one of the great things about conquering one of those lions is that I'm vegetarian. I'm not a big fan of hunting. So like when I use this, it's just because it's a good analogy. So let's say you conquer that lion. Like there are multiple ways to conquer that lion. Like you could end up conquer that lion, skin it, wear it as a coat or something. And the next time you walk past someone else who's looking at a lion, they see you with that pelt on and they're like, I didn't know that was a way this could go.
Yeah.
Or in my preference, like let's say you conquer that lion and you ride up on a lion to someone who's looking at a lot like it's growling at me. It's just like, yeah, this one growled at me too. Yeah. Nay, like
onward.
Like, which I mean, that opens up a whole new metaphor for like using your conflicts, using your weaknesses to become strengths and things like that, which is a whole other thing. But like the power of conquering something isn't just for you. It's for people that you meet along the way, because there is no way that there's nobody else who ever has or ever will experience the same thing you're struggling with. And honestly, even if you never meet, which is unlikely, even if you never meet someone who had the exact same struggle as you will meet people who've had something close enough that you can talk to them about it. You can say, I made it through.
Yeah.
And sometimes, like, especially for like, I mean, I'm a 2, so like, I'm all about to help people. Like, one of the things for me, like between the carrot and the stick idea, we're merging metaphors now.
Yeah.
Like for me, like obviously the carrot is like, you know, victory. I'd like to not struggle like this anymore. That'd be great. But then for me, the stick is like, what do I do for people? Like, What about the people who are counting on me succeeding? What about the people who I'm supposed to witness to in my future in this specific calling or after this specific mistake? Not that God intended for me to make the mistake, but he can certainly use it once I've made the choice to make it. And sometimes that's what keeps me going. Like what keeps me from, making a mistake, like, and getting all down about it, like beating myself up, because I don't know if anyone else struggle with that. I struggle with that. And the devil helps me out. Like,
yeah, he sure does.
But the thing is like, yeah,
he's the accuser of the brethren.
Yes, he's like, oh, game on. You're taking volunteers. Let's go. But the thing is if I tell myself, yes, this is a mistake. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have thought that. I shouldn't have whatever that. But if I tell myself, all right, I can either keep feeling like miserable and horrible about this, even though I've turned from it, or I can say, all right, I'm going to remember this. I'm going to learn from this. And if someone else has me, like, all right, devil, you might have got me, but you ain't going to get them. Because I'm going to be there. I'm going to walk up with my lion's thing or on my lion, like, let me show you how to tame that lion. Let me show you how to conquer that lion. So it's like, even, and I think that's one of the wonderful things that God does with failures is he's so resourceful. Like, literal king of being resourceful. We can go so far out of his plan, and he's like, all right, I'm going to use this, that. You weren't supposed to do that, but since you did, I'm going to make something good out of it.
Beauty from ashes, beauty from nothingness. Think ashes is like the remnant. It's nothing. But one of the things that I think you'll like this is that back then you heard the in songs and teachings and stuff like that in Christendom and stuff. Have you heard his train fills the temple? His train there's your name be praised. There's a few songs, but okay, so in Isaiah has this vision, I believe it's chapter 8. And he talks about, he mentions how his train fills a temple. And one of the things that is really interesting about that is, according to some of the resources that I've studied, is that the train filling the temple it's so powerful, and you're gonna love this. When two kings fought, and one nation was subdued under another nation, what they would do is they would go get the robe of the king, the kingly vesture of, let's say A and B, A whipped B. All right. So they'll go get B's robe and they would sew it onto the victor's, the victor's robe. All right. And so that's why when Isaiah says, and his train filled the temple, his victories were innumerable. All right. Well, what happens, and this is why I said you like it, is because use that now. When you have a victory over your fear, you add to your train. And that train was the train, like the wedding train, like the things that they put on the, I don't know what they put on the head, or I don't know where they put it, but and like the bride's long dress thing. All right. So the kings had those and they would add to it. And so when his train filled the temple, his victories were innumerable, pretty much, is one of the things that you can say Isaiah was saying. But you add to your train, God puts you in a position where you're able to conquer that. And when that nation, that fear, that impossibility, when it's subdued under your feet, I guess you would say, by the power of the Holy Ghost, you add to that. And so maybe instead of skinning or pelting the lion or whatever, you can, that's the analogy is an analogy that you can use, is that, you're just adding to your train, your victories. So, yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. There's a lot. I guess the moral of the story is to honestly have adventure in life. It's going to be scary, but do fun things, things that will, because listen, life is going to be hard. It's going to be boring and bland if we let it be boring and bland, but do fun things, in a very natural sense. Like, you don't have to spend a whole lot to have, I heard someone put it this way. They said, you don't have to have a lot of money to be creative. All right. But then you can have a lot of money and be extremely dull, bland. And so it's like, it's more about you taking your resources and being creative. And, what does that mean? What does that look like? How can you do fun things, make fun things happen? That's one of the things, exercise I'm going through, is like, how can I make, do things that are, I don't know, make things fun, in life, and do silly things. So one of the things that I like to do, which isn't everyone's cup of tea, is I like to be super silly out in public, because there's this social, like, piety, you're not supposed to say that. You're not supposed to do this. You're not supposed to, but I love it because I get to expand myself, because it can be nerve-wracking, or at the very least awkward to, be, walking down the street and like, hey, everyone, and everyone looks at you, say, what's up? And then they look at you like you're absolutely stupid. But, not that that's a thing to do, or you can say Jesus loves you, hey, everyone, God loves you, whatever. But what is that what did that do for me? Is it put me in a spot that was like peculiar, it put me in a spot that was awkward for me, and I faced that fear. And so now that I have that, I can continue on with expanding into that area. So just fun things like that. But yeah, this has been a good chat. A very good one. I'm glad I actually recorded this one. But yeah, so is there anything that you want to say before we head out here? No? All right. All righty, that's cool. So I guess this would be a good place to wrap it up. I'll do a official outro, and then I'll cut the recording, and then just do the normal GCC outro. Anyway, everyone, thank you guys for joining us. Me and Miss Carmen Bizarri, part of the Inferno group in the Firestarter community, also helping out with Yapa, which is really, really awesome. So yeah, thank you for joining us, talking about adventure and a whole bunch of other great things that I think are going to be beneficial, or that I know will be beneficial to everyone who actually puts it into practice. Remember, God is on your side when it comes to confronting fears. All right. Don't let those fears keep you bound. God is on your side, especially when you're moving into greater for him. If he's called you to do something great, if he wants you to do something great, move into that. All right. And God is on your side with that, no matter what fears are there. All right. The Bible also says in Ecclesiastes, it says that a man, he who regardeth the wind shall not sow, and he that regardeth the clouds shall not reap. And then Solomon goes on to say that you don't know, O vain man, if you sowed, or if you sowed, or if you would reap, even in the face of adversity. Okay, it's in Ecclesiastes 5, I believe. So check that out. But it's really good. Go out there and sow, even when things seem impossible. Stretch yourself, expand yourself, and yeah. Follow Yapa 238 everywhere. Join the Firestarter community so you can join us on these calls, because these are super fun. And we'll catch you guys in the next one. God bless. Bye.
Alrighty, Yapa fam, what did you guys think of that GCC? It's a part of the Inferno group, and I'm really excited to have had that conversation. Have had the conversation with Carmen regarding adventure, and I think that adventure is something that we must understand that we have to go on. All right. Again, if we're going anywhere in life in God, it's a very, very important thing to have on our side, that mindset that, hey, I'm going to take on challenges. I'm going to do the scary thing. I'm going to move forward and go on life's grand adventure as long as I'm here on earth. I think it's something super relevant. And if you're listening to this on Spotify, SoundCloud. Make sure you review it. Make sure you give it a 5 stars if you enjoyed it. And if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to like the video and also comment down below what was your favorite part of the video. What little snippet really spoke to you? All right, I want to know that. So comment down below. And without further ado, my friends, thank you so much for watching today's Yapastolic Podcast or listening to the podcast or videocast, I guess. Anyway, my friends, be Yapastolic. Above all, make sure you stay apostolic. And I'll catch you guys in the next podcast.